Right guys, welcome back to Caravan Carpers and another Tackle Tuesdays. In this Tackle Tuesdays, what we're going to go over is the Daiwa Emblem 35 spod reel versus the Shimano Ultegra spod reel. So most people have generally either had the matching spod reel to the reels that they use in their general fishing, whereas I like to do things differently and give you an honest review on what I've found. So my journey through reels, I started off using Daiwa Castism 25 QDA reels, and I absolutely love them reels. I've always been a Daiwa fan, as they say. You're either generally Daiwa or Shimano, and there are great reels on the market, for all budgets, but these are just the reels that I've used. So I seen on a video that Daryl Peck was using the BR25 version of the Castism for a spod reel. And the reason for using this reel is most dedicated spod reel have a slightly higher retrieve rate, and the BR version of this reel is just over 100 centimeters, where the standard reel is only 87. Nowadays the norm for reels is around the 100 centimeters mark, just over. And then a dedicated spod reel like both of these are 124 centimeter retrieval. What that means is when you're spodding out a shed load of bait like you generally do on places like Drayton and Linear and things like that, and you're fishing over a bed of bait, that means that every reel you bring back, you're bringing back slightly more line, so it just basically quickens the pace up that you can spod at. And both of these reels have identically the same retrieve rate. I'm pretty sure that's the case anyway. So cosmetically, the reels are quite similar, they're both black. The Daiwa has a black bail arm versus the Shimano that has a silver bail arm, and for me, I'm not really that bothered about the cosmetics. It's how well it works, how it fits, and that's the reason I bought both of them. I wanted to see. I kind of lost faith in Daiwa, so with this reel, it just wasn't up to the job. The spodding, and it pretty quickly seized up. And it's not a cheap reel, it's not a budget version of their reel. It's quite an expensive reel. It's £200 plus nowadays. Anyway, that reel's mag sealed, and that's Daiwa's system to stop water ingress into it, and I kind of lost faith in Daiwa when them reels seized up. So that's when I bought these, and that's why I thought, what, I'm going to try both, and I'm pretty happy that I've done it. If you was to ask me, would you use that reel or that reel, either the Shimano or the Daiwa, I wouldn't really be bothered, to be honest. I'd use either or. And I've had reports of these reels, the Shimano, falling to bits and not lasting well enough, but to be honest, I haven't had that issue, so I'm not going to say that that's happened to me, because it hasn't. And one thing I have seen with the normal fishing reels, the normal Ultegra reels, that the line can go behind the line guard on the Shimano, and I have seen that firsthand myself, but I've never actually had an issue with that. I tend to make sure I wet my braid. I never ever dunk the reel. I wet the eyes of the rod as well when I'm casting, when I'm spodding, when I'm casting normally if I'm trying to do distance. And a little tip for anybody to make sure that your reel lasts a little bit longer is, some people will just wet the spool, so you imagine putting your bucket and you're splashing your water on the spool, because that's all you really need to do. But they'll do it with the spool at the end of its stroke in the highest position. And what that allows to do is it allows water to get into this area here, onto the spindle and into the mech of the reel. And that'll actually damage how long your reel lasts. It'll start to degrade the reel quicker because you don't really want water in there. So always make sure when you're wetting your spod reel that it's at the bottom of the stroke. That's just a little tip to make sure your spod reel lasts longer. Between the two, weight-wise, they're about 600 and odd grams. I think this is about 620-ish, and this one's supposed to be about 640, 660, and in the hand, you can't really tell the difference. So this is Shimano's 14,000 size spool, and this is Daiwa's 35 size spool, and to be honest, they're pretty much the same size when you put them side by side, and the actual outer diameter of it, they're pretty much the same. I haven't found any difference in casting distance between these two spod reels. I found I get slightly more than the short 25 size of the Daiwa Castism, and the reason for that is obviously line lay, that as it drops, but it's not actually that much with spod braid, because spod braid's obviously a lot thinner than you say like your old 35 mono. Then the line doesn't drop as much, and that's the reason why it doesn't make that much of a difference. One niggle that I have found with the Daiwa Emblem is the handle. When you've been spotting for quite some time, this handle comes loose, and you can tighten it, but it always seems to come loose on me, and that is one thing that does actually do my head in about this reel. The Ultegra, on the other hand, pretty much has been solid. You know, I've never had any issues. Both these reels are really smooth, and I'd be happy with either of them. So the one thing, as I've mentioned, that's worse on the Daiwa is the handle loosening. But the one thing that I found better on the Ultegra is it's got 3 line clips. You know, it's got three line clips over the 2 there, which I don't really think would make much difference to me, but that is a plus that it has over this. I find the line clips on this are much easier to get your line round. Compared to the Daiwa, it's far easier to clip up on the Shimano, so that's a plus for that. One thing that is better on the Daiwa than is on the Shimano is the drag. I much prefer Daiwa drags over Shimano. It's half a turn on the Daiwa compared to about 1 and a little bit of a turn on the Shimano, but in reality these are spod reels, so in a normal fishing situation I definitely prefer the Daiwa drag. But the Shimano, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day the only time you're really using the drag on a spod reel is when it's locked up tight or you're loosening it off to pay line out, so it's not something that really matters. You know, 99% of the time it'll be locked up when you're spodding. So between the two there is literally the most minute differences, and not one of them differences makes any difference over which one I choose. So if you was to say to me, as I always say in my tackle reviews, if you could have all your money back for both of these reels, I wouldn't really care which one I had. You know, I'd be happy to use 2 of the Daiwa, 2 of the Shimano, or 1 of each, but I don't really care about my matching gear, so I'm just going to stick with what I've got. I initially bought them thinking I'll find which one I prefer and then sell the opposite one, and I'm happy with both, to be honest. And as shocking as that may sound, there's no difference. You know, they both are around the same price. You know, you're paying, I think at the minute you can probably get these for 110 quid each, which isn't a bad price, you know, for a reel. And I think that they're going to last for quite some time. They'll be cheap to service. You know, they're not mag sealed, so you can either service them yourself if you're that way inclined, or send them off to be serviced, and it's not going to be as expensive as your mag sealed versions. And yeah, that's about it really. You know, as far as I can say, there's no difference. There's no difference to me personally, and I'd be happy to have any of these 2 reels. Something I now want to go over is line capacity of both these spools. I'm going to give you a really handy tip that will help you out. You'll thank me for this. Shimano spod reel has a line capacity of 290 meters of 0.35 mono basically, or 0.35 diameter line. So what you find is I'm currently using the Fox Exocet braid, and that's 0.18, and that 300 meter spool isn't enough to fill this spool, and there is a calculation that I use to allow me to fill the spools correctly. So what I do is I work out the total capacity of the spool at 0.35. I then work out the capacity that it will fill with the 0.18 and take that away from the full capacity. I then work out the remaining capacity, divide that by the 0.35, and that will give you how much line in meters that you need to actually put on to back the reel. And I'm just going to cut it short for you there, because it might sound dead complicated, but it's not. If you was to buy this reel and you was to back it with 0.35 line using a 0.18 braid, you'd need 109 turns of line on that spool, then add your braid, and that will fully be perfect line lay for you. That's a nice easy tip. If you were going to use the Daiwa Emblem, this has a 300 meter spool capacity at 0.35. So to do the same with the Daiwa Emblem, you need 114 turns, so that's 114 turns of the reel of 0.35 line, then add your spod braid on top. You'll get perfect line lay on that reel as well. So that's a handy tip which will definitely help you, and it works for me. And if anybody does want me to write out the actual way I do it for working out other reels and things like that, then hit me up in the comments below. What I want you to go on in the comments below is tell me about any problems you've had with these. Tell me about which ones you use. You know, there are other brands out there on the market that make just as good spod reels as these, but I've never used them, so I can't give an honest opinion on something I've not used, and these are what I have used. I'm going to have a quick talk about braid and why I changed from the Corda braid to the Fox braid. So the Corda braid is slightly lower diameter at 0.16, and the Fox braid being 0.18 is slightly stronger. Or I go line strength by diameter. I don't really take account of what it says on the spool. And I originally used to use armor cord. Well, I didn't really get on with the Fox braid. I found that it wrapped up really easy, and I found like it degraded quite quickly, and then it'd break easily way below its breaking strain, and that's just what I found. You know, it might be a bad batch, and that's why I moved to the Fox. I also used to use armor cord as a shock leader. Always use a shock leader. That stops basically you snapping off as much. And I then changed to the Gardner kinetic shock leader. And I find that the Gardner is just as good as the armor cord. There's absolutely nothing wrong with armor cord. It's just miles cheaper. That's a tenner, and you get 50 meters, I think it is. Yeah, 50 meters. Whereas the armor cord's a lot more expensive for a lot less, and that is the only reason for using it. You know, you go through quite a few leaders. I tend, when the leader knot tends to wear and bits and bobs like that, I tend to change my leader, and that's the reason for using that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to spod reels. You know, there isn't that much more to it, and I find this is what I've picked. You know, I hope this has helped you, and I've got quite a few good Tackle Tuesdays coming in the pipeline. If you haven't seen any of my previous Tackle Tuesdays, there's a few now online, and we've got Dave the Carp, he's coming into the tackle shack, and I've always used Daiwa reels as my main reels, and he's always used Shimano. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a talk through, an honest opinion of the Shimano Ultegra reels versus the Daiwa Emblem 45 reels. I've got the gold spool ones, and the only reason I bought them is because I got a good deal on them. You know, I'd be quite happy with the black versions, but I'm going to have a guest in the tackle shack, and we're going to talk about our views on them reels, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion on that. So hopefully that'll be a good video. I'm also going to do a bit of a long-term review. Well, it's not exactly long-term, but I've used it enough now to give an honest review on the Fox Frontier Bivy. I've got the Frontier X, so that's another Tackle Tuesdays videos that's coming in the pipeline. And then I'm also hopefully going to be filming either next week or the week after my Tackle Tuesdays, where I'm going to be checking out line diameter versus reel size versus rod size, and which one of them makes the most difference, and which, for the value of what you spend, how much you're getting in return. Anyway, we're almost at the 1,000 subscriber mark as well, so when we hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, which might be by the time this video comes out, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a giveaway, and I'll announce that giveaway on the next Tackle Tuesdays that I do. So if you can give this video a little like, and you could subscribe to the channel, and you'll see any videos that are coming forward in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.